Scotland get a statement win against the Wallabies. The Springboks condemn Wales to yet more misery. Should Italy be disappointed? And are Ireland finally unearthing new talents? All this and more on this week's URC Rewind. Let's start the show. Joining me, as always, are the usual crew, the Rugby ABC of Alan, Ben, and Caitlin. Good evening, gents.
Good evening,
guys.
Hello there.
Tons of rugby to get through, and the URC is back next weekend, which means we have a round of URC predictions to do. So no time to waste. We are recording this as we always do on Sunday night, and the most recent big results that we talk about on the URC pod, where we cover only the URC nations in the international period, is Scotland defeating the Wallabies quite comfortably in the end, in what was a game of high intrigue. No one really knew what to expect going into it. But Ben, doesn't get better than that, surely.
No, it doesn't. It was fantastic. I think the first 20 minutes was a very different game to the following 60. And I think what changed the game was Suolihi going off after his tackle on Tupelo, because he was a menace that first 20 minutes. And I think sadly we were robbed of a good matchup between him and Hugh Jones. I was really looking forward to that. But him going off with that arm injury after smashing Tupelo into next week, it looked like it was a rugby league type tackle, but he managed to wrap his arms. But it's just a shame that he had to go off, immediately after that, because I think he'd been playing quite well that first 20 minutes. Since he went to Australia, just retreated, I think, into themselves and became a very defensive unit and didn't offer much out with that. From a Scottish perspective, that was our, strongest 15. Give or take Kinghorn and Tom Jordan. I think it was a toss-up for those, who would start in the 15 jersey. But in the end, Kinghorn got the nod, and I think he was one of many candidates who got man of the match today. I think he probably got it just based on his play, both his carrying. I think he carried over 100, and I think he 12 carries for over 100 meters, and his pass off for Finn Russell's try was outstanding too. It was a statement of victory for lots of reasons. I think we really needed to come out of this autumn with a 3-1. I knew we weren't going to beat the Springboks, but we did run them close, give or take. The South African Springboks sort of attacking that last 10 minutes of that game 2 weeks ago. But to beat the Australians after they've beaten England and Wales, I think was a real important milestone for us, because it just shows at the end of the season, Townsend can now review that and be quite satisfied with the progress that we have. Xander Fagerson was an absolute monster on the tight head today. His carries in that first half, the way he continued in the second half, was impressive. Finn Russell was, I wouldn't say he was exceptional with his flair, but I think he was steady today. But then his try off Kinghorn was epitomises sort of, I think, his maturity in games like this. I just don't think that game was there today for him to be, his flair. I think the flair was around him. I think Tupelo, again, with his pull-out passes around the back, Hugh Jones with his burrowing through contact, Tupelotu's try went through contact, a couple of soft shoulders, I think, from the Australian backs. I think they'll be quite disappointed looking at that, because at that point it was 3-0 to Australia at that point, because Noah Lolesio had kicked a penalty sort of early doors, because there was a lot of concerted pressure by the Wallabies in the first 10-15 minutes. But every single Scottish player on the park today was an 8 or a 9 out of 10, and that type of performance stopped the Wallabies from really being able to do anything after the first 20 minutes.
Yeah,
so really pleased, really happy.
Much needed performance from Ben White, I thought. We've spoken on this podcast about how the Scottish sort of scrum half stocks were looking a little bit shaky for a moment there. I've been looking to pull up clips of tries, and of course TNT have made it seem like Finn Russell's try was Finn Russell individual brilliance rather than him just dotting down over the line, because they've got an English Premiership to sell. But here it is for the YouTube viewers. It really felt like Scotland in that sort of final quarter really stretched their legs. I put it in the group chat that at half time, if Scotland are a proper team, they win this by 2 scores, and in the end, that's what they did. Yeah. So I always felt that Scotland were winning this. I never felt, even when you were 3-0 down, I never thought you were going to lose.
I think the reason why we didn't score so much in the first half was our lineup was malfunctioning again. And it was, again, an Edinburgh player. We've talked about the problems Edinburgh had with our line out. And Ewan Ashman's,
3 lineouts lost, according to this.
Our stats were up to 86% because we were so solid in the second half. So I think, and there were a lot more lineouts in the second half on the top of my head. There's still things to do with the line out, and Rory Lawson did bring it up in the commentary today. I think it is our major weaknesses. It is the line out. today it wasn't so much a problem in the second half because Australia just didn't really until they scored that try very late on, which was very clever little kick through, and I think it was a trial debut for the Australian winger. But yeah, I think it was a complete performance and something that I think we can go to Six Nations. I think we got Italy and Ireland up first two games. I think top of my head, which are both home games. I think so. I think there's a lot that we can be really, really pleased about coming away from a game like today because Australia, the momentum is with them at the moment. They had a poor Southern Hemisphere summer and they've come here with Joe Schmidt now getting sort of making his mark on that side and trying to set up the way he wants them to play. And hopefully it'll lead to a competitive Lions tour next year. So we don't want it to be that one-sided. But I think today we just, from man for man, we dominated them. And I think you can see it through the stats. The territory was incredible. Turnovers, etc. Just really, really pleasing. And yeah, I think from 1 to 15 and then the subs that came on, we didn't bring any backs on today apart from George Horner. That was the only thing I was surprised about. No, Tom
Yeah, that
Jordan
was odd.
fell there
Mercy,
for a
I
single
reckon. No,
minute.
don't put Tom Jordan on, lads. It's bad enough for him, No need for that.
I'm just surprised he didn't because I think it would have been quite nice to see him play either at 12 or at 15 and just see what, if any sort of phase play would have been any different. But
yeah, 4
it
tries
was
to 1. There's your story.
Yeah, and all
which
the
is
tries came from
significant.
different types of play as well, which was good. Josh Bayless's try was, Darcy Graham sort of breaking through the midfield,
Yes, give me excuse to
and
show it.
Bayless's try was incredible. And he's one of those players who's kind of in and around the squad, but you got an opportunity today because Jack Dempsey's obviously injured, so Matt Ferguson moved to the back. So Jamie Ritchie came in at 6, and obviously Rory Darge at 7. And that triumvirate, those three were incredible today. Jamie Ritchie was, he's been in and out of the squad since he lost the captaincy, and today he showed up. Jacqueline, for fun. The amount of turnovers he generated for us was outstanding.
Yeah.
But Darcy Graham gets through spaces where he has no license to do so. I don't know how he does it. He just has this incredible low center of gravity. You think of Aiden Hazard or Cesc Fabregas or Alexis
Just
Sanchez
on
in
this Bayless
football.
finish, I thought he was mad going for this. I thought, what are you doing? Take contact, go to ground. And he did
Yeah,
go to ground, but over the try line.
over the try line and dotted it down. And
I
I was
think
very
from
pleased with it.
I didn't get to watch the game completely, so I watched some of the highlights. But I think one of the most interesting things that stands out for me, Ben, and you might be able to correct me here, was traditionally when Scotland win games like this against teams like Australia, it's normally in the wet, it's cold, it's muddy, and the Southern Hemisphere teams seem to struggle. Well, what was really interesting about this win was it wasn't like that. You were playing
It was
an
a summer's day
Australian
in Edinburgh
team.
today. Basically,
Yeah,
compared to
Lovely,
yesterday.
lovely day it looked.
yeah, and the thing is, it was
Compared to
like a
yesterday.
game where you would normally expect the Australians to have all the handling, and you guys, you put them to the sword. And in the last 20 minutes of the game, you really came into your own. And traditionally, when you see like a Scotland Australia game and Scotland win, it's really low scoring. It's like lots of attritional play, defense. But this was a really, some of the tries they scored were really adventurous, and that really impressed me. So I
It's
think
interesting you say
Scotland,
that, yeah. Because apart from that battering we gave in 2017, I think 4 of the last 7 or 8 games have probably been settled by less than a score and sometimes
That's
less than a
right, yeah.
penalty.
Halen, do you have the stats on Scotland against Australia?
On Scotland, Australia? No. On Scotland in general, I do. And I have closed it. Here it is. Scotland's 9 wins. This comes from Opta. I think that's their most in a calendar year. That said, 6 of them were against Tier 2 nations because they played 4 games in the summer. They played Portugal, they played Fiji. I could add a 7th, but we'll get onto that a little bit later on. But it's still like I didn't see the game like college right to be doing, but like, and I knew well if I watched the game I wouldn't get anything done. So it was a bit of a choose one or the other. But I do think for Scotland, this result means a lot for them as well to book in, because like it has been a roller coaster year. Like they could have beaten Ireland in Dublin. They probably should have beaten France. They did beat England. They did beat Wales. They completely no-showed against Italy in Rome. Summer tour was the summer tour. South African games, South Africa just a bad matchup across the park. I think this one, I tipped Australia to win. I think there might be an
Because you're a
element of
Scotland
Australia.
hater.
No, I'm a Joe Schmidt believer. I've been a Joe Schmidt believer for a long time. There's a big difference. I've only been a Scotland hater since I realised it's fun because Scotland
You have to talk to me every week, yeah.
No, it's before that. I speak to other Scotland fans as well who also take it in good faith, to be fair to them. But no, I like it. I think it's a big result for them. I really do. And like you mentioned, next year Six Nations, they start with Italy, then they've got Ireland at home. Look, I'm going to back Ireland against Scotland every day of the week because that's what history tells us. they're going to do it at some stage, though. They are going to turn over Ireland at some stage. And if they do it next year, it opens up the Six Nations.
7 years since we last beat you, isn't it? 2018 when Greg Laidlaw kicked that penalty from the
2017.
top corner. 17, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a
Oh,
World
yeah,
Cup
will be, yeah.
game, 2 World Cup games in between there as well. So like it is
And we've lost
quite
both
an
of those,
impressive
yeah.
run for Ireland. But
So
at the same
Ben,
time,
what would you give them out of 10 for this game compared to the other games you've watched so far?
What you mean, is it complete performance?
As a complete performance,
I think that's probably the best Scotland performance this season, I think.
I'd go along with that. And I would along
Wales,
with Caelan's
Wales
point as
first
well.
half.
Yeah.
First
Along
half
with
against
Ca-
Wales
yeah.
in Cardiff. Yeah.
Sorry,
and
as long with
again,
Caelan's point, I think if they're going to beat Ireland, it'll be in this next Six Nations, because Caelan's highlighted a couple of problems with Ireland. You're going to have a year or two now to have a real go at them to try and see if you can, you know, put Caelan's team to the sword.
Yeah. And the momentum sometimes carries you, don't it? Doesn't it? So, like, if we, home game against Italy, I don't know. They seem to have
Ray on
regressed
Benetton's
2-0
downfall.
on.
That's all I
Yeah.
can say. If
Well, that's
Benetton
exactly
don't
it.
click, I don't see
Italy
it.
don't click.
You know.
Well, I think 12 of the Italian starters were Benetton players. One, Zebre, and obviously Garbisi and Capuozzo play
Yeah.
in top don't they? But yeah, it was.
And some of them played well, but still the trend continues. Like Italy, Benetton had a poor start to the year. Benetton or Italy won't be overly happy with their November. And you do kind of feel like, now again, you're at home to Italy as well, where Italy haven't won since, I'm going to say 2015, 2014, something in around that kind of period.
Yeah, we think that they win in Scotland all the time, but they don't.
Yeah, no,
I think they've
like
won
they
there
did,
like twice.
They did for like in the mid 2000s, but like that's a long time ago
Yeah.
now. Everything before COVID is
But
30 years.
going back to this game though, I think that the scoreline flattered Australia a little bit because their try kind of came from nowhere, and you left a good couple of tries out on the
In
park.
the first half in particular, I think there was a few opportunities where Coffin corner bottom left, west stand to the north stand, where a couple of lineouts weren't the pass off from Richie when he was lifted went awry 2 or 3 times actually, and that's there was a 10-minute kind of period between the 25th and 35th minute where it went awry. And I think if those two connect, then we're going over. I think it's one of those where the moment it goes with you and you've got the power to go for the ball off the line out. But yeah, I think we could have won by 40 today, potentially. And it wouldn't, like you say, it wouldn't have flattered Australia if we'd beaten them.
Yeah. I think, and I agree with you. I think Xander Ferguson had a great game. Only 3 Scotland put-ins, but no scrum penalties given away that I can remember. Maybe 1 or 2. Anyway,
there was
one
just
no lost scrums.
Yeah, there was one, I think, just as Rory Lawson and John Bartley were saying, "Oh, there's been no scrum penalties yet," and then we gave one away. So I think it was like just on half time.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it was against.
Yeah, Sherman went
Schumann.
in. His hips swung. Yeah. So I think the only player in that Australian pack that kind of did anything worthy to was Alan Alatoa. I think he was the only person in that front row and throughout the rest of the pack that showed up. The rest of them just. They were, when your team's not playing well, where there was very few of their players being spoken about in the positive by the commentary team, and I didn't remember many Australian players' names coming up. Obviously, Suoleli, he is a marquee player. He's come over from NRL, and the first 25 minutes he did do a lot. He did disrupt a lot of the restarts. There was a couple where he managed to tap them back. He wasn't even attempting to catch them. It was just that slap back, which I think. Something that
I'm not sure about that tactic. Someone once said to me, if you can get 2 hands to slap it, you can catch it. But what do I know?
Maybe it's just a disruption tactic they wanted to try out today. Yeah. But him going off, I think that's the only, like I said at the outset, the only thing I was disappointed with Suoleli going off. Because I just wanted to see him play up against Jones and Tuipoloi, because that could be an advert or a starter for the main course next year when we're down there and Tuipoloi and Jones. Hopefully we'll have one or two of those jerseys.
There was one moment where in the second half where Hugh Jones was looking to make a line break and he was up against a prop, and he didn't take him on. And I thought he should have done.
Kinghorn did that. Kinghorn went. Kinghorn definitely had that at one point. And I remember John Barkley being very quick to say, "Why aren't you running outside him?" Because there was a massive mix up with the matchup. There was it was mismatch. I should say, that's the word I'm looking for, between I think Kinghorn, Jones, and Van der Merwe up against 2 props, and Alan Alatoa is one of them, and he's played 65 minutes at this point, I think it was, and then the other front rowers were outside of him. But yeah, I think that's why I was a little bit surprised Kinghorn got round the match. I think there was
I was surprised. What do you? So this will be the last point on this game. Kinghorn has looked a bit out of sorts. Now, I think honestly, and you wouldn't normally say this because in the past it was always like the big star players would come back to Scotland and make them look better. But I think it's taken these 4 games or 3 games for the foreign-based Scottish players to come up to the Glasgow players' standard. Honestly, I think it's taken them a while to click, and I think Toulouse and Glasgow are very, very, very different teams, and I think Kinghorn has struggled to get onto the same hymn sheet with all of his teammates.
I think that's a fair point. He looked a little bit lost in the first half, and there was a couple of occasions where, and I've not seen us do this, and I don't know if it was intentional, whether it was just on the fly, but it was certainly twice, Chris Busby blew us obviously going into a maul off a run and trying to push them all through. But obviously, as soon as you flop on, as soon as it's called maul and you flop, then obviously it's a defensive, turnover and it's a win for Australia to put in the scrum. And I think there was one occasion Blair Kinghorn went in and it became a maul that was just like rolling through, and then obviously it stopped. Then Ikitau obviously got underneath, and he got underneath the ball carrier 2 occasions. I think Tuplot was the first occasion, and Kinghorn was the second. And Kinghorn just kind of came away going from like shaking his head, and I was like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you running into contact and not getting at least a knee on the ground to continue to play? Because we were driving into the 22 at a rate of knots, and it didn't seem to make sense. And I can give or take, once I was like, yeah, fair enough. Maybe it's just something that just happens, but it happened twice in quick succession, and Kinghorn did walk away looking a little bit lost.
I think he's tried to, because he's created a couple of tries for Toulouse this season by going up and then getting his hand free and offloading.
Yeah, the
There was
offload,
a really nice one against, I think it was Toulon where he did that. But
Ikitau's done his homework, I think.
yeah,
I think
test
that's probably
footy,
what's happened.
different kettle of fish.
Yeah. And the only footnote I would say is Duhan van der Molen now takes the record try total. We're going to hear it every week that, they've drawn level. No, Darcy's one ahead. No, Duhan's one ahead.
It's cool to have both happening at the same time. It's quite unusual, isn't it?
Can we do it like maps? So like, the way you used to go like, first, second, fifth, 10th, 20th. Can we do it like that? So like maybe at the end of the Six Nations we review it, and then we leave it until the end of the year, so we don't have to like every week, because it's going to be every fucking week. If one of them doesn't go on the Lions tour, it's just going to kill the fun out of it.
If there's a line break by one of them and the other is on their shoulder and they've got I think 2-on-1 on the fullback, it'll be very interesting to see.
So they start to make a business decision. Well, interestingly, Darcy did have an opportunity today because he was on the wing, but Kinghorn passed it back inside to Russell, and he did celebrate. But at first, I was like, he's going to be quite annoyed that he didn't get, because it would have been a walk-in. I think it was a walk-in. It was a 95% walk-in. So yeah, obviously that would have been him drawing level again, and then the Instagram comes out, record, equal record try scorers again. But yeah. I guess it's the joy of rugby at the moment for being a Scottish fan, is just seeing those two just tear it up, because to have had our top try scorer being Stuart Hogg with 29, like, seems remarkably low compared to the other countries. Like, you look at, isn't Tony Underwood at English one's Tony Underwood, he's like 50 something, I think, or something like that. You look
the
at New
Bok
Zealand
one is a bit like that, because obviously you've got Habana is I think way out in front,
70 something, I think Habana's got.
But then, like, current Boks, I think Matt Pimpey is the highest scoring one with about 30. It's really not very many for individual players.
Yeah, the Ireland record is 41, I think, and Keith Earls on 35, and no one else. Jacob Stockdale is next. Our current player's on 18. Obviously, he's been exercised. The New Zealand one, obviously, is the one we always talk about, because there almost appears to be a curse. But now Jordy Barrett is on, or sorry, not Jordy Barrett. Bowden Barrett is within 3 of Howlett's record, and Will Jordan is within 10, I think. One of them, it feels destined that they'll break it, but we said this about Julian Savea as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, then, let's get on to the next game. Just before we do, reminder, if you're liking what you're seeing, hearing, listening to so far, please do subscribe. We passed 1,000 subscribers last week, so this will have adverts in it. Congratulations, everybody. Well done. We did it.
I'll just listen. Everyone move over. Now that we've passed 1,000 subscribers, everyone move over to podcast form, because I think is that the balance now?
Well, yeah, more money on YouTube. But the
hampers will abound.
So, funny story, just before we move on to the next game, is after the last pod, so we weren't past 1,000 on this last week. We passed 1,000 for when Rap came out, and the Rap did really well last week as well, which is the Welsh Rugby podcast, for people who don't know. And
negativity sells, people.
And oh my God, it so does. Like the Welsh, the
Misery loves
rap,
company,
the
right?
rap TikTok of me analyzing Welsh defeats has absolutely gone through the roof.
Seen that.
But anyway, so rap came out when we were monetized, and producer Lee messaged me going, "Oh my God, we've made so much money out of the Welsh podcast," and because I've got another YouTube channel which is monetized, and I was like, that really is a lot of money that they've made off that video. How have they done that?
The double R, you're going to be calling you up for a donation. I think.
The lads for a slice.
So I'll
Can
give you a WRU
bankroll
thing.
the Dragons this season, please.
But I checked it, and if you click automatically place adverts on YouTube for a 1 hour or 1 hour 20 long video, 14 ad breaks it puts in, and that's like double roll ads for each one. So there was like best part of 30 adverts during this podcast. So I messaged producer Lee back like, that's probably why it made loads of money, Lee. It's because John Lewis is advertising Christmas 30 times an episode.
As long as it's not the Coca-Cola AI Christmas ad, I think we can all be happy to share the spoils of Rap's new good fortune.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm sure it won't hurt Coca-Cola sales too badly.
I think they'll be
Okay.
fine.
So on to Springboks versus Wales then. So last week I was stress eating cocktail sausages. This
What is
week
it this
I'm
week?
stress drinking alcohol. So Alan, I'll let you go first, talk about the Boks, and then you guys can ask me questions about Wales.
Okay, so I was actually at this game. It was an awesome day.
Oh
So I
yeah.
did all my drinking
Yeah, tell us about your
yesterday.
day out.
Yeah, I did my drinking yesterday, and Hugh's doing his tonight. But it was a pretty good, awesome day out. Apart from was it Storm Bert? Is it? So lots of running around between the
Yeah.
pubs and stuff like that. Got in nice and early and watched the Ireland Fiji game. So there's a little bit of discussion coming up about that one later on. But when we got into the stadium, obviously an awesome atmosphere. And basically, it felt like a pretty one-sided game. I think, like Hugh, you mentioned it, like a bit of a training run, really, for the Boks, wasn't it? I think it was good to see Hanekom get his debut for the Springboks, and it was also Jordan Hendrickson did a really good game too. So I was pretty happy with the way they, were interchanging between the backs and the forwards. Mostert got man of the match. It's always awesome to see him play. Eben Etzebeth got on the try sheet as well, so he had a try. Very, very happy with the performance that they had. I think centre combinations did well. I think some of the Welsh back row did okay defence wise, but when you're actually in the stadium, you get a sense, don't you, of how the game is going, and you don't necessarily get to see as much detail as you would on TV. So the sense I got was that it was a really awesome atmosphere. We were surrounded by Welsh people. They took it in their stride. Lots of
Was there a lot of Bok fans there? Because the chat from the Welsh coverage was that the state it was the biggest attendance of the autumn so far, and the chat it's because all the Boks have come and taken up all
it
the
felt
empty
that way.
seats.
I mean, there was a lot. We were joined by quite a few Springboks in the pubs and stuff before that. Who came and sat at our table. My Welsh
Really?
friends were. It was an awesome, awesome day. They're all in a good mood. But the Welsh people were there. They were all. They all seem more optimistic before the game, and then during the game they're optimistic, and then it's only when they're all leaving.
You might find that 60,000 Welsh people in the stadium, and maybe not all of them watch rugby very religiously. It is a day out.
Yes, it's
going to
definitely
watch
a day
Wales
out. It
rather
would have
than
helped if it wasn't raining so much, but
Yeah.
it was a very, very good day out. And I'm obviously happy with the win, happy with the season. So now we take a bit of a break until the internationals next. I think we're playing Italy at home. So long, nice break. Really happy with the performance, happy with the team. They've done us proud. So thank you very much for that, Springboks. And yeah, awesome game. How did you feel it went from watching it on TV, guys? What did you think?
One-way traffic,
Yeah.
especially the first 20 minutes. 19-0 up after 16 minutes, wasn't it?
I think one of the worrying things from a Welsh perspective was there was a stat that they were all over the South African rugby sites. Basically, the post-contact meters was 439 meters.
Yeah, just look. That's outrageous. That's five times the Welsh was 90 meters. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, 15 line breaks to 1. So Wales have got a few issues there. Probably could have scored more points. I think you mentioned it that maybe a better team we would have scored. It did get a little bit free flowing, and there was a couple of turnovers, a few handling errors, which were a little bit frustrating at times. But you know, at that point in the day, at that point in the game, once you get to half time, you're just enjoying the day out, really. And it's like I've already said, awesome stadium to watch rugby at. And Jordan Hendrickson with his kicking, I think, you know, we all
Where's
want
the
to
Swaz
see a
kick?
Springbok fly half making their kicks, and difficult kicks as well. So good on him for playing so well in that regard. But yes, really happy with the performance. Colby, Aronsa, you know, we can't fault those guys. So just a very, very good all-round game. There's
Do you
something
think
very
it?
Dan Carter about that kick, isn't
That's what I
there?
was
Yeah.
thinking.
So
Yeah,
for
very,
audio
very
listeners,
much
we're showing the Swaz
a
kick.
banana, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is
And
the cool thing about this kick is this is the conversion for his own try. He's done this on purpose, surely, because he was
Yeah,
hitting them.
he
He
has.
did. It was the only one in the whole game that he hit like this. He's gone. Look what I can do.
the game was kind of won at that stage, if I
Oh,
It was
yeah.
one before kickoff.
well,
But
apart from that, I'm trying to be impartial here, but like it was kind of done at that stage, wasn't it?
yeah. So Alan, where does Hendricks sit in this hierarchy now? Because I'm glad he got a shot because I do think he's been maybe the Sharks' best player so far this season.
Did he get a whole game at 10 as well? Because
Yeah,
Pollard
full
came off for
80,
Dialende,
full
didn't
80.
he?
Yeah,
Yes.
he did. Pollard did come on, but Pollard went into the centres.
And
Yeah,
Dialende
For
went off, didn't he?
Dialende
Yeah.
went off. So
yeah,
Eben went off in the first half with a back injury.
yeah.
That was a shame.
Yeah, as far as the actual hierarchy of the fly halves, it's actually difficult to know at the moment because the next two tests we have are against Italy and a tier 2 nation in South Africa. So Russie will be happy with the performance, but I think it might have been a good idea to start Hendricks in one of the other games, which would have been a bit harder. So it's unlikely that Jordan Hendricks has displaced Marnie Libok, but I'm sure that the competition for the number 10 jersey will be quite prolific in that series against Italy. I think you'll see a lot of interchange in between them. And I think the idea for Russie is to have Pollard coming on at inside centre to help with like the kicking and that kind of stuff.
The only thing that I will say about the Springbok 10 hierarchy is I don't think Pollard is number one.
I would say for the next World Cup, he definitely isn't. I think that's something it's Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. I
Oh my
think
God, yeah.
at the next World Cup, I don't think Billy LaRue will be there. So I think the elder statesman potentially in the team, there'll be a couple, but Pollard will definitely be like a senior guy in the back line for the Boks. You know, at inside centre, you don't need to be quite as nippy, quite as agile. He's got the physique for inside centre.
Yeah.
Kicking, his kicking and having them kick, you know, during the big games in the World Cup and that. So I think Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu, I think he's back for the Stormers this weekend. So we have to see how that goes. But I do believe that Marnie Libok might potentially be on, you know, the nice, because he doesn't really play any other positions. So we'll have to see how it goes. It's really
true.
hard
And
to gauge.
Jordan plays other positions. Jordan can play 12 and 15.
That's right, yeah.
So that makes it interesting. Yeah, it's crazy to think that you've gone this whole season and Damien Willems hasn't played for the Boks this season. That's crazy.
It's something that the Stormers would probably be quite relieved at that, but he's been picking up injuries.
Yeah.
And there are players that we have. We can all mention players who've played for the teams who come into the squad, and then maybe it's through fame or, you know, popularity or the drop off a little bit. And Damien Willems hasn't quite been up to the standard that we would have expected, really. And then obviously the injuries never help, do they? So we have to see how it goes in that regard. But we do still need you know, another fullback. I think someone to replace Billy LaRue. So I'm sure he'll get another shot.
Yeah, no doubt.
That stat line you just put up here is pretty damning on the Welsh performance.
Yeah.
The only thing there is in the green is tackles made, which is a defensive.
So I've seen some
their missed
Springbok
tackles was really high. They had 46 missed tackles, I think, off the top of my head.
Yeah, 46 missed tackles. So I've seen some Springbok content creators saying like, "Oh, Wales defended quite well." No, we didn't. We did a lot of tackles. We didn't defend well. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
We didn't. I think it was like 3 dominant hits. Like the Springboks made 92 tackles in the whole game, but still made 11 dominant hits. Like
the ratios don't work there, do they?
Yeah. This was worse than Australia for me because there's from a Welsh point of view there was nothing. There was nothing to write home about. There was nothing to analyse. Sam Costello started brightly enough at 10, went off for an HIA after 20 minutes, came back on, but then it was decided at halftime that actually no, he was concussed, so was brought off. So we need to understand what's happened there.
A bit amateurish, isn't it?
throwing Blair Murray in at fullback, a crazy selection decision. The Jack Morgan and James Botham both looked good, but this is the kind of game that flankers are going to look good because there's loads of tackling, and that's how flankers stat pad. They did go well. They didn't let anybody down, but it's very grasping at strawsy. And like I said, there was just nothing from a Welsh point of view to analyze. What can I say? Of course, there are always going to be fans who are saying like, "Oh, this player played good, this player played bad, or we need to get this player in." It's like beyond that because no player really did anything. I mean, poor old Archie Griffin. Like he's playing up against his club teammate who is keeping him out of the jersey. So Archie Griffin has played since the beginning of last season, has played less than 300 minutes for Bath, whereas Thomas du Toit has played over 1,500, and they're competing for the same jersey. So no wonder one got munched. I've said it a million times. I hope Archie Griffin goes on for a great Wales career. He shouldn't be Wales starting tight head. He's not ready. He's not got the mileage. He's not got the experience. To not select Henry Thomas, who, okay, doesn't have a ton of caps, but is 30 plus, has been around the block, has scrummaged in the top 14. To not pick him is a crazy decision. And then, there's the whole narrative about Wales don't have the caps. I was going down the list of Wales players. And I was like, Gareth Thomas starting Lucet. He pulled out injured before this game. I swear he's won a Six Nations with Wales. And then Ryan Elias, he's definitely won a Six Nations with Wales. And then you got obviously like Henry Thomas or something. Then you go behind it. Adam Beard has won a Grand Slam with Wales. Will Rowlands was part of the team that beat South Africa in South Africa. You can go further back. Thomas Williams has played in successful Welsh teams. Gareth Anscombe has played in successful Welsh teams, won a Grand Slam with Wales. You can go players who weren't picked, Owen Watkin and Nick Tompkins. You can say what you want about the ultimate ceiling of those two players. Owen Watkins and Nick Tompkins have both won Six Nations titles with Wales and have played together. And Gatland just didn't pick them. And then you got Liam Williams, who wasn't selected either. He's won Grand Slams with Wales. So this whole narrative about, oh, there's just no good players in Wales. There are, just Gatland just doesn't pick them. It's very Eddie Jones. It's very, very Eddie Jones of just getting rid of.
I don't know if the snipes in the press and the media help either, whether it's from Gatland or whether it's from ex-players. I don't know if that's going to build a lot of unity and trust in the in the changing rooms and stuff either when it comes to the squads. So you always get this sense like the ex-players and things on Twitter and all this kind of thing are coming out, and it's from my fairly like recent history of it seems a very Welsh rugby thing to do, to very New Zealand as well. Sometimes they have done it in the past and stuff like that, but very lots of snipes in the media, and whether it's players or players tweeting. I don't think that would fly with Rassie Erasmus. I mean, I don't think it's flown. Even when Alistair Coetzee was in charge, there's no disharmony from ex-players, maybe one or two, but not to this extent.
Yeah, it wouldn't fly with Faz either.
But then I think the thing is, like, Gatland did very well. And I remember someone said it. I can't remember if it was Bigger or someone who was there around with Wales a long time. Like, even Gatland probably gets stale at Wales before 2019 if he didn't take, 2 career breaks in the middle for 2 Lions tours. They reckon that allowed there to be a freshness and to kind of reshape things. And I think even now, like, he was gone for 3 years, 4 years. I don't know. Again, time, COVID, construct, I don't know.
2 years, 3 years.
So the Chiefs
and,
as well,
he's come back in, but he's almost like, I don't think his coaching stock is where it's at. I don't think he has evolved as a coach.
There's a lot of people asking, was it all Sean Edwards now? Because Wales's best thing under Gatland was the defence, and the defence coach was Sean Edwards. So,
and they were a very direct team who were very well drilled. And Edwards, when he first went into France, for instance, in 2020, they stripped everything back. Like, it was very Edwards at the start. Now they've loosened things up.
Did Sean Edwards go on the Lions tours with him?
He went on the tour in 2008. Andy Farrell was the defence coach in 13 and 17.
And Tandy in 21.
Tandy in 21.
Can I ask that question? Because I know Gatland may end up stay until 2027. He could outlast other coaches. I know that. But is Steve Tandy the favourite as of now if Gatland does step
It
aside?
ended really badly for him at the Ospreys. He's done well since he's left the Ospreys and he's gone around the world a bit and added to his CV and things. But I think he's one of those coaches who's like, no, I'm an assistant, so I don't want to be the head coach. He's an assistant.
Because
So
from this angle, it seems like he's the name that people are putting together. It's like, oh, well, he was at the Ospreys and his stock has risen. And, you know, because it's always a funny one, because I've long said this, especially in rugby, where there isn't a plethora of coaches. Time is as important as anything. Do you know,
well, I think it's going to end up being a race. I think if Gatland goes, I think a few other coaches will go because there's only so many on the market. And so someone like Dave Rennie, someone mentioned Jamie Joseph to me today, and I was like, oh, that wouldn't be a bad shout. Obviously, his experience with Japan have
club coach could come available as well.
When's the
Yeah.
review due? Is it this week that they're having a review into the performance?
This week and every other week for the rest of time. They have a review. They have reviews into reviews. Everyone said after full time said, oh, they'll probably launch a review. And then today they've announced we are launching a review. Like they launched a review into the whole sexism thing, which, you know, is now an annual occurrence, the review into WRU sexism. Yeah. So but that exactly what you were alluding to there, Alan, is it's gotten toxic. So can you imagine what the first press conference of the Six Nations is going to be when he names the team?
Oh,
And he sits there and he goes, ask me about the team I've picked. And all the journalists are going to be there. Like, apparently the attendances for his press conferences have gone through the roof. And no one's there to ask about his vision
It
for the
was
game
that
of
way
Latino
last
something.
year as well. Like the first year, so he came back in 2023, Six Nations. His first game was against Ireland, if you
Yeah.
remember, in Ireland. Everyone thought, oh, Gatland, he's back. Ireland are going to slip up, and then obviously they didn't. But I remember at that stage, it was like, oh, you know, like Gatland, you know, he's back. There's such a story. This time last year, and we'll see it when the Six Nations documentary comes out. It was storyline after storyline after storyline after storyline, and it was criticism, and it wasn't. It's not at the level it's at now, and I think it's only natural that it's peaked now because it's 12 losses in a row. It was a poor summer tour, it was a poor Six Nations, it was a poor autumn, all that included. But it's just this like mirage of questioning, and there's always seems to be something. Like it might even by the time he has that first press conference in January, we might even be talking about results. It could be a region, it could be someone at the WRU, it could be another scandal. And like I do agree with Alan to the point that that doesn't help. I don't agree that the players voicing opinions, which are perfectly valid, and players who look like no coach is loved by 100% of his players. No coach is even loved by 80% of his players nearly at this stage. Like it's so hard.
No, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is players who are in the squad now who would have looked up to those players, I don't think it helps the unity when
it's not as young of a team as we think, though. That's the thing. Like,
no, I know, but the thing is, I mean, they might be mates, might be friends. But if one of your friends is saying that, and you're sitting there probably agreeing with them, being like, "Yeah, you've told me that in private, and I kind of agree with you." You can't be an active player like coming out and saying that stuff. If you're an expert, they might not make a big deal about it, like in the media, but that doesn't help if your coach is telling you to do something, and you're thinking this is not the game plan for us. This isn't going to work. You know,
that's fair.
It might
Well,
not be.
I think the doubt is fair at this stage because
It's definitely there.
Scotland
Yeah.
is fair. Just on South Africa, because again, I didn't really see the game, and like there'd be lots to talk about with Wales, but just on South Africa, you said even Etzbeth got injured. Sean Klein pulled up before the game, and I really hope it's not his last chance to get another cap. Because I hope he does get cap next year. But is there a bit of a teething at second row? Because Peter Steff has played a lot of second row this year. Klein's been injured. Another second row whose name escapes me has been injured as well. One of the big name guys.
Nokia,
yeah. Is there a kind of a step there, or do you think it's just get through this year and blood them next year on?
I think it's getting through this year. I don't think the test. Fortunately for us, we've got tests against Italy, so they're going to get an extended rest now. Unfortunately for the Sharks, they're not all going to come back into the Sharks squad now again. So they're going to get a break, and then the Sharks are going to struggle, and then they'll come back again just before that tour. They might have 4 to 6 weeks off. I'm not sure exactly how long the period of time is, but when you're playing a game we play, the whole reason Russie does this bench, the split, is so to reduce minutes for the players. So he'll wrap them all up in cotton wool now. He'll expect a couple to come. Norkia, he'll expect him to come back now. RG Snyman, I mean, that's thrilling for us that he's made it through the season. And to see Mostert never really misses a step, though, does he? He just comes straight in. He's one of those players that just
It's like he's not.
Test match
It's like he's not. Yeah, he's like he's not been out. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. And Eben, I mean, at this point in the season, and if you look over the last couple of years, he's probably played the most out of, all of them. So he deserved a break. And at that point, they'll say it was a back injury. He didn't look like he was limping off or anything. He didn't look happy. He definitely didn't look happy coming off. But they'll say it's a back niggle or whatever. But
because you were so comfortably ahead, Razzie was like, let's just hook him and
I think it was something like 26 or 27, like what's it, 7 or 5.
It was 26-0, I think, or 26-5.
Yeah, but it was they'd scored and then Evan went off, and some of them were like, "Oh, why is he not clapping the crowd and stuff?" Because he was obviously peeved not to be playing a bit longer. So I don't know if he had a legitimate injury, but obviously, like I said, it was good to have RG Snyman playing, Mostert there, and Peter Steph Toy did start off at lock. But yeah,
he's played a lot this season. I thought he was good.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's obviously better as a flank. When he first moved to flank, there were people doubting that he could play flank. They were saying, "Oh, he's a lock with his size and all that kind of stuff." But no, I think there will be I mean, Luat Diago hasn't come back at all. He might be done as well. There are other locks.
Where is Diago playing now?
I think he's playing in Japan. I think he's playing in Japan, but he's got shoulder problems. I think. With the season the way it is now with the URC and internationals, and the way our game plan is, I think lock is a problem. We've got stocks there at the moment, but this break comes at a really good time for all of them, because
just one last thing before we move off, because I know, are we doing Italy New Zealand next?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I've got a little segue because World Rugby Awards are on tonight. Everyone who's listened to this will have heard them. It's basically between Wallace Atiti and Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu for the Breakthrough Player of the Year. Before I tell you who won it,
Wallace Atiti won it, I think, right?
Wallace Atiti.
Are you going to tell me Emmanuel Fewa-Bosa has won it?
No, not Fewa-Bosa. It is Wallace Atiti who's won that one. I'm following this, so I will give updates if you see me drop to the floor. That means Caelan Darcy has won World Player of the Year, because I don't think he is. But yeah, Wallace Atiti. I don't know. I think there's a recency bias there. He's been so good.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's he was playing in November. It's kind of like the thing of like,
I think Wallace
and James Lowe could be squeezed out of because he had a good Six Nations, but maybe not as good. That kind of way. I think
Wallace Atiti's breakthrough was more breakthrough-y. Like Sasha's been playing URC for a couple of seasons, whereas Wallace made his Super Rugby debut this year and now is arguably outshining Ardie Surveyor.
And he was one of the best players in their cup, wasn't it? In the Super Rugby, he was amazing for the Blues. I mean, the Blues don't win it. It's a big deal for New Zealand when the Blues win the Super Rugby, and the Crusaders didn't even make the semis. So it was like the wool that's turned upside down. It's gone back in time.
Crusaders lost a lot of talent over that into sort of.
You can check out a video about that on the HG Rugby YouTube channel and find out what happened to the Crusaders. But now we must talk about Italy. I always feel bad that we don't give Italy enough airtime on this pod because none of us are Italian. We like we said last week, there is a thing going on with Zebra as well. We'll talk about that more next week when we're talking about URC properly. But yeah, any thoughts on Italy versus the All Blacks? Because there's been a lot of people saying Italy did well, scoreline wasn't too bad, but I don't know if I agree with that.
And I'll be the one to ruffle Italian hair and give them a hand on the back. The last time they played, they conceded 90 plus 96. Yes, New Zealand weren't as good. Yes, all of that. But you know what? It's still something. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if this was Fiji or Japan or whoever, and they concede 80, 90 to New Zealand, and the next time it's still a contest with 20 minutes to go, we give them praise. I feel like Italy, they rightly get held to a high standard, but at the same time, they're still tier kind of 1.5 for a reason. They've never beaten New Zealand. They've never come close to beating New Zealand. The fact they gave them a game is a stepping stone. And like we've said it already about like Benetton have been in bad form. Zebra haven't been in great form. Better, arguably, in context. But, but like this is this is an okay result. And I feel better about Italy's autumn after they put up a performance of some sort with Giuliani had a monster game, everyone was telling me. Now, I didn't see it, so that's why I'm trying to keep it a little bit vague and go off people at trust. Giuliani having a monster game and things like that. But at least it's something. And I think when they go into the Six Nations, probably a bad start for them. The fact that they have Scotland away up first, and then on weekends Ireland play Scotland. They play Wales at home. I think. I don't know. I think it's Wales.
Everyone plays each other at least once.
Well, yes,
Yep.
but I'm trying to go in order. I just can't remember.
Italy are on the 8th. I think it's the 8th of February. They're going to play Wales in Italy.
Yeah,
so
which would be week 2, which is
they're going to target that game, aren't they?
They absolutely will, and I think they can take confidence from this. And look, New Zealand aren't the New Zealand that we grew up with, but if you're an Italian team, they're still.
We did grow up at very different times, though, Caelan. I'm like 20 years older than you, so.
Yeah, but still, they were still a fairly.
Yeah, I would definitely watch a documentary on 90s Italy because, by all accounts, it was interesting times.
Yeah.
But
They had a winning record over Ireland in the 90s. Now, Ireland were abysmal and had a losing record to basically everyone, but they had a winning record over Ireland in the 90s. Yeah.
yeah. Alan, you were shaking your head when I was talking about should Italy be proud of themselves. You don't think so?
Yeah, no, I think they should be proud of themselves. I'm looking at the team that the All Blacks played, and it was a full strength team.
It was a Sam Cane testimonial.
Yes, I know that's right, and who was
TJ.
TJ Perinara. So I'm looking at the team they played. I was shaking my head because I'm thinking this team should have put Italy to the sword here, and I think Italy should be proud. It's basically a first, full strength team. And I was looking at the substitutions that New Zealand made. They're all between minute 50 and minute 66, which shows that they're treating it like a test match. It's very Springbok in the way they've done these substitutions. They've come on in clumps, in groups. But I think for the team that the All Blacks had, I think Italy should be very proud of their performance. It would be nice if they'd won it. And like I said, I think I said in the chat, if Fiji played like Italy and Italy had Fiji's bulk, I think they probably would win more games.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't an All Blacks podcast, but there's many things to say about the All Blacks under Razor, because it's a peculiar team. But from my point of view, from Italy, I would agree that Italy should be okay with the result. I mean, they give away a try to Bodie at the end where Capuzzo thinks he's playing Poe away, and so does a stupid kick, and then oh no, it's Bowden Barrett and he scored a try. But there was a point in this game, in the third quarter, where Italy came to be a man up. I think Mark Talea was sent to the sin bin for accumulative penalties. Then Italy kicked to the corner. They maul it. The maul goes nowhere. New Zealand stop the maul. So they do a couple of phases. New Zealand infringe again. They go to the corner again. They maul it. Maul goes nowhere. Couple of phases. They get an advantage. Pick and go, going nowhere. Then advantage is over. They kick to the corner again. They try and maul it again. They're throwing backs into the maul. It's going nowhere. The maul gets turned over. And Italy give away a scrum penalty from the resulting scrum and New Zealand clear.
Because they would have been knackered at that point, so they're going to just get pushed over, aren't they?
But I would be going mad. Like the forwards there have got massive white line fever, complete white line fever. They should have scored easily. Like I said, Italy were a man up in the backs, and after the forwards had tried to maul it twice and failed twice, Italy should have gone because they had penalty advantage, so they should have gone right. We're going to try a backs move here. We've got a man over anyway, and they should have scored. Bear in mind that Italy's captain on the night was Ignacio Brex, who's a back, and they've got Paolo Garbisi, who should be walking over who should be walking to whoever it is after the second maul goes nowhere and saying, "We're going to the backs this time." Should be saying it. He should have in that time had enough to figure out what was going on. Complete white line fever, complete lack of leadership from the backs. So that's why I'm hammering Italy a little bit. I'm not saying they should have won the game, but they should have given New Zealand more bother than they did.
I think from a Southern Hemisphere point of view, I think we hold Italy to the same standard as Argentina. I think if it was Argentina playing and they did that, we'd be frustrated as well. So you are correct. We expect Italy to be Argentina and to just play to their strengths and just, intelligent rugby. Like, just you've got the structures in place. You have teams. You've got, So I would say if there was Argentina, I'd be like, okay, because they're not too dissimilar, are they, in terms of where they've come and progressed over the last 20,
There's
30
actually
years.
quite a lot of common heritage between the two teams as well.
So I would expect from a rugby standpoint, if it was Argentina doing that, we'd be going crazy. Because it's Italy, they seem to get away with a lot more. But I agree with you. I would always say, okay, if there was Argentina, I would expect them to score there. And if it's because it's Italy, I'm like sitting here thinking, I would expect them to score there. But exactly for the reasons you've said.
It's just smarter decision making, isn't it? I think you can level that accusation to Italy. Probably vast majority of games they play as they get themselves into really positive positions, and then it's a knock on, or they get turned over in a maul, and then they lose the result in scrum penalty because the forwards have been pushing for a good 5-10 minutes.
The Italians had no yellow cards, and they did.
Had two.
They had
Lynette Brown and
Scott Barrett again.
Scott Barrett always gets a yellow card.
That's the other thing about Italy in this game is they got monstered up front. Their scrum got absolutely pulverized. So that's
like Chris Backett.
And then the pace as well. Like Satiti, who we've talked about, gets absolutely nowhere near him. But yeah, anyway, breaking news. Kaylin, we have the World Player of the Year has been announced just this moment.
Drum roll. We're not going to add it in post-production, but the World Player of the Year is, of course, the 2019 winner, Pieter-Steph du Toit. And honestly, deserved. Now, the dream team, if I'm choosing between the World Rugby one and the one that Tala put out, I go with the one Tala put out. But look, Pieter-Steph is World Player of the Year. He's beaten off, who was it, Doris, Etzebeth, and
Colby.
Yeah. They all make the team, as you'd imagine. Damien McKenzie makes the team at 10, which I wouldn't have gone with. Yeah, that feels like we don't have enough Kiwis. Let's get another one in there. So the team.
Any Northern Hemisphere players in there? Apart from Dupont, it's got to be.
You're about to find out.
I get there now. So it's Oxenshea, Malcolm Marks, Tyra Lomax.
Malcolm Marks. Sorry, Malcolm Marks has started about 2 games for the Springboks this year. Bongi Umbanambi has been better than Malcolm Marks this season. Dan Sheehan has been better than Malcolm Marks this season.
Yeah, Sheehan had a great Six Nations. It's Etzebeth, just for people on audio. Etzebeth and Byrne, I think that one's undisputed. That one was straightforward. Yeah. Matera gets in at 6, which was a close call. Pieter-Steph at 7, Doris at 8, Gibson Park and Damien McKenzie, the halfbacks, Dale Endy and Creel.
Yeah, can't argue.
Okay, I feel like there was no wrong answer. There was a lot of good centres this year. And then
Will Jordan? Juan Cruz Malia is better than Will Jordan as a fullback.
James Lowe and Jensen Colby.
Not a single French player in there?
No.
Oh my goodness.
I know why Dupont's not there because
I could have put in Crow. I thought Crow had a great year. Now, I'm a big fan of his anyways, because anytime I watch Toulouse, I feel like he plays well. I'd probably gone Francois Crow. I love how, for anyone on YouTube, there is a South African rugby Twitter type basically saying Damien McKenzie, what a joke. And look, every once in a while, like he's right on this one.
That smacks of they've gone through it and the only Kiwi in it is Tyrell Lomax, and they've gone, oh Jesus, we can't only pick one Kiwi and it be a tight head prop. So have a rethink, boys. Oh, to be fair, Will Jordan's in it as well, but still, die on the hill. Juan Cruz Malia and Afalele Fassi have had better years than Will Jordan.
Even like
as a fullback. If he was a winger,
if it was a winger, I don't think Will Jordan's a fullback.
I know.
Kinghorn not been in that conversation. I know I'm very Scottish.
Kinghorn would.
Not a test.
They're on the record as saying it's only international form, not club form. Kinghorn has had a great season for club. He's been good.
Ramos.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ramos. Yeah,
Ramos could definitely have been in there, but then again, like these votes, we've seen it before. They can just be very all over the place. Anyway, at the best of times, I think personally it should be 15 Irish players because just insert whatever joke you want. But no, I think it's a centre. Dale Endy and Creel, right? I disagree with that. I don't disagree with it, but I feel like you could have put in about 5 different centres and it would still be right. Do you know that kind of thing?
I think Creel is clear as a 13. I think as a 12. There's a lot of 12 and a half.
Who could have been just behind him, I think.
There's a lot of 12s and a halves in rugby at the moment. Yeah. So I think that's what's helped these two.
Like Menincello, I think from an Irish perspective, I think Henshaw and Aki both have had good years.
I don't think Pablo Matera is the best open side
No.
of this year.
Like, is he put him at blindside 6 or 7?
He's at
Argentina
their
number the other way
6.
around.
Yeah,
So does
it's
South
'cause-
Oh, do
Africa.
they?
So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
so
At least there's no English in it. Anyway, so
there we go. No Welsh either, like so.
last game
There's
of
obvious.
the weekend. Last game of the weekend is Ireland against Fiji. It was also the first game of the weekend.
Well, for us, it was.
Yeah. So Kay, then you were there in the
It was.
flesh. I
It
hope you
was
packed
pretty.
your coat. You were awful high up, and
Yeah.
just give us your thoughts on it.
I was very high up. The seat was very comfortable. Thank you very much. It was incredibly balmy and mild. So, read into that as you will. No, look, I think Ireland, this is their best performance of the autumn. I don't think there's any disputing that. Statistically, Ireland dominant. I know you'll get onto stuff like that later on yourself, Hugh. Like the likes of Bundyaki just had a monster of a game. Gus McCarthy on debut had a monster of a game. Thought Craig Casey was absolutely fantastic from minute 1 to minute 80. But Fiji, if you want to know one thing about Fiji, and I know we're not here to talk about Fiji, like 17 penalties conceded. You can't do that. You can't do that at juniors, at under 14s, whatever it is. So that's disappointing. But for Ireland, they got back on the horse. The attack finally flowed. I've said on this podcast before, I felt like Ireland's halfbacks weren't clicking, but I felt like just the attack wasn't clicking, that there was no flow to it. Like Jack Crowley had 30 touches against Argentina, most of those in the first half, and that's when they played well. Sam Prendergast in his 70 minutes, and we'll get on to the fact that he played 70 in a minute. In his 70 minutes, he had 59 touches. Craig Casey was very happy to let the backs do the work, and I feel like Ireland played their better rugby when they do that. They played their best rugby of the Mike Catt era doing that. In the Six Nations, they were more off 10 than they are. But we have a tendency to go back to off 9 when we're getting bullied. Seen that in Twickenham, seen that in the first test in Pretoria. Granted, with a different, with Casey in there at 9 that day as well, it should be said. But I feel like when Ireland go off 10 and they just let that width, that natural width come into play, you've got someone like Robbie Henshaw 13. Like, I love Waisea Naik-Levu, but Henshaw was 2 steps ahead of him at every turn. Naik-Levu was jumping in, trying to make that big hit. Henshaw was shimmy.
Naif though was absolutely done dirty by his own teammates in defence at times. Like,
oh, he was in no man's land at times, and like Tuisova had 1 big hit, but apart from that,
the fact that Fiji finished with 80% tackle possession is a surprise to tackle completion is a surprise to me, because I suppose you can't miss a tackle if you're in the wrong place, I guess.
Well, and it should be said, like most of Ireland's stats have improved greatly, and people will say, but the opposition, but this, but that. But like if you're half the amount of penalties conceded, half the amount of tackles missed, you're way more efficient in your 22 entries. It doesn't matter who you're playing. That's an improved performance. And that's what I liked from Ireland. And as well as that, I said we wanted to see fresh faces in there. Gus McCarthy, 21 years of age, captained the under-20s to a World Cup final in 2020. In 2023, sorry. I'm all over the place. Sorry, that's 2023. He was fantastic.
3 try assists for a hooker.
And that's, now it's for people who may have never seen him play before, he did play back row up until Junior Cup, or maybe Junior Cup to Senior Cup, something like that. So like
very common for hookers to be converted.
Yeah, and like you can see it, like he's a very powerful athlete. I know Hugh, you've got stats there, like 24 meters, 13 passes, 9 carries.
That's a lot for a hooker.
It's a lot. Now he did play 80
minutes. That's a hell of a shift up.
Yeah.
But it was an unbelievable performance from him. Cormac Izuchukwu, statistically not as good, but I tried to follow him around the park at times. He was really effective. Probably miscast a small bit. I feel like he needs to play wider. I think the tighter he plays, the less you're going to get out of him, because he's just such an athlete as opposed to a proper, second row that we're used to. And Sam Prendergast was very good. Again, we'll get on to him in a minute, but in his 70 minutes, he grew into it. He improved as the game went on. Really confident. I thought, unlike the last 2 games, okay, Henshaw played well against Argentina, should be said. But unlike recent games, Ireland's back row was better across the board. I think Craig Casey had the best performance by an Irish 9. It was the best Irish centre pairing. Prendergast couldn't ask for more. Like when you put in a new 10, you want the 3 or 4 players either side to stand up and play well. That was Doris's best performance of the autumn. It was Casey was brilliant. Bundy was unstoppable. Robbie Henshaw was excellent. And just a final word on the back three. Jamie Osborne went off after half an hour with an injury. He had started really, really well. Jacob Stockdale, 10 carries, 70 metres, was within inches of scoring an excellent try. Always looked dangerous. Got on a lot more ball in midfield than what you usually see because Ulster play a lot more of a limited game plan. It was brilliant. And I love Jacob. Jacob is one of my favourite, non-Munster based Irish players. I just love watching him. He's just such a joy to watch. It was great to see. And a very uplifting performance. Now, I will have qualms about, you need to improve here and there. And like any team, you still have to improve. You always have to improve. But a much better performance. And disappointed with Fiji, but I can't really ask for too much more from Ireland. It looked like they were going to score 40 from early on. And that's all you can ask for in a game like this.
Fiji were pretty honking. This was a bit of a throwback game for Fiji. I think they threw back in all their European players a bit too much, and that cohesion was lost. I thought their props, in particular in defence, really struggled and made some very, very bad decisions at times.
Taggy was pulled off after
Taggy had a very difficult game, made some quite poor choices while he was out there. So I do think there is that context. I mean, when Ireland are finishing the game with a hooker at number 8 and a number 8 outside centre, and God knows what,
making scrum half in his 120th cap playing his first game on the wing.
Yeah, playing on the wing. So, and the fact that Fiji didn't capitalise on any of that tells a bit, that they should be very disappointed with their performance in this game. And the other thing I will say is, being a fanboy of a couple of fly halves, you get a lot of criticism from fans. I am now hypersensitive to any mistake a fly half makes. And go, aha, see? And I will say that Sam Prendergast made every mistake it is possible to make in a rugby match in this game at some point, whether it be forward passes going to ground, passes going into touch, kicks going out on the full, and yeah.
And that happens, but it's better to do it in this game than.
Yeah, agree. It's good to get it out of his system, but I don't think he played well. Honestly, I think he made a lot of mistakes.
Out of 10.
How was his game against New Zealand again? Did he play against his All Blacks?
No, he played against Argentina.
Was it? No.
And it's funny. He played against Argentina, and there was this idea of, oh my God, he was unbelievable. He was good. He was at the same standard he was at the weekend, right? I don't think his performances, dipped or whatever. He had 2 very good performances for his first 2 caps. You will see a lot of oh my God, he was unbelievable. If I'm talking about any 21-year-old, and the fact that we 2 out there is pretty cool because we don't see it that lot with Ireland, it's Gus McCarthy. And
yes, I agree.
100%. He was unbelievable. And even Tom Clarkson off the bench had a decent cameo. He's only 24. But Prendergast, because it's 10 and because it's, in the eyes of some people, it's Johnny Sexton's jersey. Because you'll never disassociate Sexton from the 10 shirt, which is fine to a degree. Then it has to be Prendergast. But
there was chat about that pre-match as well, wasn't there? I think Powell had to come out and sort of defend his sort of troops from being sort of infiltrated by Sexton, being around the squad and not being a distraction.
Sexton shouldn't be there. I know Lee was a lot stronger on this than I was when the news broke. I don't think he should be there. I don't think you should be there, less than a year after you retire. It's too much of a vacuum. And Sexton has trained with the likes of Prendergast and watched these lads play at school. He hasn't trained week on week with Crowley. It's a competitive advantage thing.
Yeah, we had it. The Scarlets had it with Ryan Elias, where whenever Ken Owens was in the room, Ryan Elias wouldn't speak because there's a power discrepancy there.
Yeah, there's a huge one between Sexton and the rest of the Irish 10 zone because
definitely
they're all in his shadow until he. The thing is, though, I think Sexton's got such an ego that he won't step away. I think he just needs to go away and be quiet for a couple of years. You don't hear too much about Paul O'Connell after he retired. He went very quiet. You don't hear so much about Alan Wynne-Jones since he's retired because they were such stalwarts in their position that no one came close to them during their career. And Alan Wynne-Jones, 15, 16 years in the second row. Same with Paul O'Connell. Johnny Sexton, 10, 15 years in that number 10 jersey where, unless he was at Racing when, they had to have an agreement with the RFU so he could play, but outside of that, he constantly had that 10 unless he was injured. It's time to just take a step back and not be involved and just take a break and just enjoy retirement. I know it's difficult to do that when you just, because essentially you're just switching the off button. And the way it was for Sexton, you didn't know his last game was going to be his last game until the game finished, right? You didn't know that. It's obviously there to win, and you want to get to the World Cup final, and or get to a semi-final, let alone a World Cup final. I
Well,
suppose
we would have
had,
beaten
had,
Argentina.
had to throw that one in there. But that's the thing, you just got to step back and just sort of let the fledglings come through. And
I don't think
I don't know.
I don't
especially
think the
Sexton.
fans would let that happen. It doesn't matter. It's one thing for the player to step back, but the fans wouldn't.
The fans do not matter. I'd like that's the ultimate factor. I think
Yeah.
Alwyn Jones is a great comparison because Alwyn Jones is the link between
He's literally disappeared
Wales
into
were
the
just
mountains.
growing. Yeah, and like when Wales, like that proper, when I think of Welsh rugby, I think of like 2012, 2013, 2019, like when they're at the peak of their powers. Like if Alwyn Jones went in there, he probably doesn't get the same amount of gravitas that Sexton does, because Sexton was fiery, he was this, that, the other, he was the golden child, he was the old veteran, he was everything. But I think, as you said, he probably should have been kept away. I think it speaks to the pressure that Farrell is under, and we have discussed this. Farrell is under pressure. If November had gone badly, it affects the Lions tour, it affects the Six Nations, it affects next November, it affects next summer.
Well, the big box office game is next week. So if we come on to that, because we've got URC to chat as well in a minute. So previews for Ireland versus Australia. So Ben, coming to you first, having just watched your team play Australia, what's your feeling about them going to face Ireland next?
We talked about this last week, that we think Australia still had a win in them. I think my opinion's probably changed on that now. Will Skelton's going to be back in the top 14 next week because it's out of calendar, isn't it?
Yeah, more than that.
Unless
Raj decides to do something really funny, and I would respect him more for it if he does.
And Suoli, he's not going to be playing. I don't know. I think it'll be a routine victory for Ireland next weekend.
Oh, he
I'm
got
not
in,
sure.
didn't he?
Suoli, it was a big hit on Tubeloy, but he came off the worst. It was the way he wrapped his arm, kind of came in late. Probably
Yeah,
made
it was
contact with
Scott Williams on Brian
Tubeloy's
O'Driscoll
hip.
vibes.
Yeah, it was arm contact with the hip. I think it looked nasty. It was initially an HIE, but it wasn't HIE. He went off and he wasn't. And Max Jorgensen came on for him, and they also had to switch around their back line. But yeah, I think Ireland will win comfortably. I think that Australia's opportunity was today, and they didn't take it because we didn't let them. But I think you'll end your autumn series with a win next weekend, by at least 14, if not more.
I won't jump straight to the bookmakers, but I'd be fascinated to see what they said of that, especially when the squad updates come through. Ireland will have a couple of injuries, but if it's Osborne and Stockdale, they're probably not going to start anyway.
Yeah.
Realistically, it doesn't really change the strength of the Irish team. I'm fascinated to see what Irish team gets named. Porter will start, Kelleher will start. Furlong is out, so we're hearing he will not feature, so it'll be Beelum and +1. I would probably go with James Ryan to start alongside Byrne and give McCarthy 30 minutes off the bench and just see him from that role, because again, like you can mix and match. I bring back O'Mahony because I just think you need more solidity at the line out if you're going to have no Henderson in the 23, no Baird in the 23, because he's touch and go, no Herring. I think McCarthy stays in, so I'd probably have Peter O'Mahony involved, and I'd rather start him than have him off the bench. I think there's a conversation we had at 9. Not that Gibson Park gets dropped, but do you go?
He starts.
He will, but you could go. You could just roll the dice and say
he's still the best scrum half outside Dupont.
Well, he's not playing the best rugby. That's the thing.
I thought he was great against the All Blacks.
He was great defensively, but where did Ireland's attack go? It went nowhere. He did not bring them anywhere, and I think that's my tactical opinion on that.
I think the only
selection
conversation is in the centres.
Yeah,
because they were amazing against Fiji, and Robbie Henshaw at 13.
100%. And especially with Swali out, it changes the picture of that. Now it's not as scary of an Australian midfield, because now they're down 2 centres.
Oh, come on. Swahili has played, he made England look like mugs, and he got 10 minutes against Wales. Now apparently he's the best 13 in the world.
No, but he's also, the other guy's out as well, Krivy. So,
oh, but he was a bit rubbish anyway.
Well, you're down 2 of your top 3 centres. You know what I mean? If Ireland were down 2 of the top 3 centres, they probably coped. They probably still have McCluskey at 12 or whatever. Although McCluskey did a stint on the wing the last day. I'm fascinated to see how they go.
Saw McCluskey on the wing yesterday, didn't he? Nearly run one in, and then I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, the game went a bit weird towards the end. Alan, any thoughts on this one, Ireland, Australia?
Definitely hope Australia win. I think Ireland will, but to make me engage on a Lions tour when we're not playing, I hope Australia can do something and make it an interesting game.
I think they will. I think Schmidt will have something.
I hope they do. I do hope that, just for the final game of the series and the Autumn Nations and stuff. So I'm hoping that Australia can show some of that, that like game plan that they had against England. But I think Ben's onto something. It's probably going to be a game too far for them. But I do hope Australia can back up performances they've done and perform, because I think it's better for the Lions. At this point now, we all start looking forward to the Six Nations and the Lions tour, don't we? So, and I'd actually like to watch it. So the last one I tried to watch in Australia was quite hard, difficult to watch.
I'll just finish on this. If I'm Australia, I'm sending the sun, moon, and stars in around the breakdown. And not necessarily, just slow Ireland down. It's not that simple. You slow them down, you scrag the 9, and just from there, because I don't believe they are defensively solid enough to entail Ireland. I don't think they're physically power enough to suffocate them just yet. I think if you do that, New Zealand did a very good job of stifling Ireland the last couple of times they played them. Not always just with power, but just being fucking annoying.
I think Australia are smart. You know what I mean? They're very, very smart.
Joe Smith is a very smart coach.
Yeah.
He knows how to push boundaries, and that's probably a better way of putting it than
It'll be tactically fascinating. But it's a shame that no one's going to talk about that game anyway, because the URC is back and everyone will be talking about that instead. So
can I just say, what a slate of fixtures. I only just read them there.
It's our third Interpod game this week.
In Thomond. I'll be there. Well, I hope to be there. I'm off work, so I should be there.
The Lions are playing Munster.
The Lions are getting some air miles in, aren't they? So first game is Glasgow versus Scarlets. So
that's essentially a pod game. Ben is essentially supporting Glasgow at this stage.
Ben, how many Glasgow players do you think are going to be back for this one? Because they're like 15 odd every match day for Scotland so far this season.
I think what they'll do is I think Hastings will be at 10. I think George Hall might get a rest. Jamie W at 9. I think Tuipulotu and Jones will definitely get a rest. So bring Jordan in. I think Cancelier, you'll see him on the wing. I think you'll see Carl Rowe on the wing or full back. I think both Vegas will get a rest. Cummins will get a rest. Henko Venter will be back in back row because obviously he's had a bit of a break because he doesn't have any international caps. There's enough in the Glasgow backs to still put out a pretty strong team. I think I'd say Glasgow win by at least 20. I think the home game. Yeah,
cool. And for people on who don't have Premier Sports, it's on BBC Wales as well. For me, Scarlets, we should have our squad not be too affected. The only thing that you worry about is have they lost a bunch of rhythm for the boys who went to Wales but didn't play very much for Wales, like Kemsley Matthias, like Henry Thomas. Eddie James, I hope he hasn't played that much for Wales, so I hope he's available. Sam Costello, it looks like he won't be. But apart from that, we should be reasonably unaffected. I just want to get the boys back to a place that loves them and cares about them and looks after them instead of that horrible Mr. Gatland who they've been answering to.
It is interesting, Scotland playing on a Sunday and Glasgow playing on the following Friday. But I mean, they would obviously know this weeks in advance, and I'm sure Franco Smith and the rest of his team
I hereby declare the Scarlets a banana skin for Glasgow. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's in Glasgow though.
Yeah, Glasgow statistically the hardest away fixture in the whole URC. So
in the last 3 years as well.
Ulster versus Leinster.
Yeah, that's my game of the week. I don't know if we'll do game of the week predictions. That's my game of the week. Fascinating insofar as Ulster will probably have a few lads back. You'd assume they'll have Timoney back. Might get O'Toole. Might get Herring if they're really
might get Stockdale.
No, I think Stockdale's out. Unfortunately. Probably won't get McCluskey back, in fairness. They might get a couple of lads back. They'll already have, a couple of injuries healing up. There's A games going on at the moment from the provinces. Ulster went very, very weak. I think they're targeting this game. Whereas Leinster, as we know, they'll have a lot of lads away with Ireland. Their team that we see will be probably the weakest Leinster team we will see all season, bar the tour to South Africa.
Ulster don't like losing at home.
Ulster don't like losing at home. Like the last time these two sides played in Ravenhill was the prime example. Ulster had no right to win it.
There's going to be a lot of third choice players for Leinster, I think, isn't there, next week?
Yeah, like you're looking at, I think you'll see 2 or 3 academy players in there because they do have a few.
I agree. Well. Definitely on the
Ross
bench.
Byrne might get a game.
The bench will be academy.
Ross Byrne was on the bench for the A team actually, behind his brother. But I suppose when you're flying over and back to Montpellier to negotiate a contract,
yeah, that's true.
That might be why.
He just needs to commit a quick hate crime and then he'd be signed.
Yeah, I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole.
So I'm going Ulster in this one.
I'm going Ulster
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think I'll go
Ulster
Ulster.
by 3.
Oh, and now
Love
I'm
it.
less confident because Ulster don't win when everyone backs them, like against Cardiff.
Love it. Right, Alan, have I heard that Sharks Stormers is a sellout?
Well,
Have I
it
seen that
probably is,
somewhere?
yeah, this
I
time of
heard that
year.
as well.
Would definitely
Yeah.
be, middle of summer holidays and all that kind of stuff getting there. But I think it'll be Sharks are quite good with the sales and stuff. But the thing is, I don't know if all the Springboks aren't going to be back for the Sharks, whereas
The
the
thing is, because
Stormers
it's
will have.
Champions Cup as well the week after
Exactly,
this.
yeah.
So
So
when
you
are they
got
going to
this
get a chance to
again. So
rest?
I think it'll be a awesome atmosphere and stuff to be there. But I don't really know who to pick in this one, to be honest with you. I think the Sharks probably just about edge it based on the Stormers' form. But both of them playing in South Africa means it's you can never really call these games because the Stormers have got a pretty good record over the Sharks. So I think the Sharks will edge it by within a score. So within 5 points, something along those lines.
I can see that. I can see that. Cardiff Dragons. Cardiff are going to win.
Yeah,
Dragons can't buy a win over Cardiff. They haven't won since like 2016. It's like a horrendous thing, and it's also the worst Welsh derby because it's always a terrible game and Cardiff win.
I
So
was gonna say I have memories of like every other Welsh derby, but never Cardiff Dragons, and that might align.
it's supposed to be the big derby, but Connacht Bulls. Now, that's an
Uh,
interesting game. So
I
have
agree. Connacht put out a
just
very
because it's
strong
in
team in the A
Connacht,
games.
just because
So
it's in Connacht, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Boks in this one because otherwise they got to fly home.
yeah.
Whereas because the Bulls, I mean, it's a long old few weeks for the Bulls players, but the Bulls stayed in the UK and the Boks came out to meet them. So I
Mm.
wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of Bulls there. But
yeah,
Well, LaRue's not played the last 2 games. He didn't play, did he?
That's a
So
good
I
hopefully
think
he'll
point.
be
the
back
thing
in.
that's a
is, Rossi
massive
has a
factor.
specific agreement with the teams, and certain players have got, whether they play or not, a
But Jake
couple of.
White doesn't care for Razzie.
No, no, I don't think they're the biggest. He's
No
taken
love
all of
lost.
Jake White's shine, so I don't think they're
They
the
still
best of
both have
fans.
more World Cup wins than the rest of us. So
Yeah,
hey.
Yeah.
exactly. But I don't think the Bulls travel well in Connacht and stuff like that. I want the Bulls to win, obviously, and I think I'm not sure. Again, Connacht, these places, it starts becoming like home heavy, home win heavy. These Connacht, these games, stuff like that. So I'm probably going to say Connacht will probably just edge that, but I really hope the Bulls can pull it through.
I think if it's tight, I'd nearly go with the Bulls. I think their power could, like, if it's a tight game and it comes down to power and set piece, I think they could sniff it.
Yeah,
But
I think
feel
if
like
it's
Connacht would win this
dry,
by 10.
I think if it's dry, then but they don't like that they
It's
don't like the
November
pitch
in Ireland.
either. It's funny with the Bulls there.
I'll check the weather for Galway and I'll come back to you on that one.
Windy. It will be windy.
It's always windy.
Edinburgh Benetton.
That's Edinburgh.
It's got to
It's
be
got to be
Edinburgh Ben, surely.
It's got to
Yeah.
nothing
Come
less
on,
than a
Ben,
bonus.
positive.
It's got to be a bonus point victory. I'm still had enough of Sean Everett, and I know a lot of other Edinburgh fans have. I've read it on socials. Yeah, I mean we didn't have many players away with the Scotland setup, so we do have apart from Duana Darcy and Grant Gilchrist and Sherman and Ashman. Yeah, there's a team there, but the cohesion worries me. This block is going to matter. We've got a decent Challenge Cup run. We've got Gloucester, we've got Van. Bayonne and Black Lion. There's 4 teams there that we can probably beat. In December and January. I'm not that excited about Edinburgh at the moment. I hate
Come
to say
on,
this,
it's
but
going
I'm
to be
just
awesome.
really,
It's
but
going
I'm
to be
just
such a
really
one-sided game for Edinburgh, Ben.
It should be, but Everett just doesn't seem to have a
Sorry,
clue.
sorry, Ben. Sorry, Caelan's got his hand up.
No,
Yes, Caelan.
I'm not. I didn't say to go in before him. Ben can finish, and I'll go in after.
It was such a bizarre action that I felt that something seismic must be
Is
going
it a
on.
legacy hand? I get those on team meetings at work. Didn't expect one on Sunday night, but yeah, we have to. It has to be a bonus point win because we're 2 and 4. And we've not won an away game yet. We lost the Ospreys, which was an embarrassment just before the international break. And we have to come out for this game and get a bonus point win, nothing less really. If we don't win the next sort of 4 league games out of 5, I think we can beat Glasgow at home on our day.
But on the flip side, if
the
Benetton
season's
lose,
over.
their season's done.
Yeah, if we lose, our season's done, I think, to be honest. 2 and 5, not great. Yeah, jury's going to remain out on Everett for the rest of the season until they decide what they want to do with him. He has got a 2-year contract, which I'm very, very surprised about, but there we are.
Yeah. Come on then, Caelan. What have you got to share?
So the weather update for Galway on Saturday is breezy, rain,
Yeah.
and about 10 degrees. So that suits forward rugby, but I don't think it suits the Bulls forward rugby.
It's not exactly altitude, it matters, is
No,
it?
it isn't.
No, well,
So,
Not
you've
Loftus.
never stood in the sports ground pitch on a windy day. It does matter, trust me.
Munster Lions then.
I'll be a good host. I'll let Alan go first.
Okay, this is my game of the week, and I think listening to the Lions fans that I was at the stands with yesterday, this is a one-sided game for the Lions. We really fancy this game as our third interpod game. I'm raring to go. I'm so thrilled we've got Munster after this international
Your players have all
break.
been well rested.
Yeah, and we don't have many guys there. There's a couple of the awards nights was the other night, and a few of the Springboks have made it. They're all itching to go. So I'm going to take the Lions on this one by about between 7 and 10 points. I think they're itching to go, and it's going to be such an awesome game.
Is it at? It's at Thomond. I thought it might be at Muzza, but no.
No, that's Musgrave done for 2024.
Edinburgh's the next one at Musgrave, I think, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
February.
Taylor, what's this I'm looking at here? What's this?
Yeah.
12th. 12th.
Let me speak. I'm not going to bet against Munster because none of us really bet against our own teams here anyway. Well, I know Ben was hedging his bets there.
Hedging his bets.
He didn't want to pick Edinburgh, but he did reluctantly. No, look, Munster have had a lot of turmoil. There's been a further coaching change. Andy Kyriakou has departed to go back to his family in the UK. Alex Codling, the Ireland women's forwards coach, is going to join up on the interim basis. It's not going to be easy, but you look at the team Munster are going to be able to field. You can't think they can't win. They're still going to have. Okay, Dean Bluler is the new side prop because Jeremy Luckman's injured. They're still going to have Barron, Ahern.
Billy Burns a clock.
Hmm?
It's Billy Burns a clock.
Yeah, well, Billy Burns still a good player. Kendellen, Coombs, Quinn, Nankivell might be back. You'll still have Haley, Kilgallen. I believe Calvin Nash will be back for Munster. He'll be one of the players released this week. So there's no reason Munster can't win this. They need a result. Their home form has been poor at times over the last 3 years, but I've seen enough in the game against New Zealand XV to think they can still get the job done and go into the Stade Francais game a week later in Europe with just about enough momentum to kind of, get something going. If they don't, it could become very stale, and that's a big risk. So I think not playing with fear is never ideal either. That's the only thing, but I will tip Munster.
And then finally, the basement battle between Zebra and the Ospreys. I can guarantee you that this will be an atrocious game. I'm sorry, we're supposed to be UFC hype. It'll be a great game. But the Ospreys always send a B team to Zebra, and it's always like 11-10 or something like that. So Toby Booth will be getting his woe machine out in the week and talking about, we've got 6 players whose shoelaces are untied, blah blah blah, and all that. And he'll send a B team, and it will be ropey, it will be poor quality, and it will be 11 points to 10. I think the Ospreys will win it. Because Zebra, I like the last game Zebra played were against the Scarlets, and I was really quite surprised by how poor they were. And there's a load of off the field stuff going on with Zebra as well, which we'll talk about more next week. So I'm going for an Ospreys win on this one. That brings us to the end, gents. So I think we've managed a reasonable timed podcast this week. So well done, everybody. And
Thanks, Caelan.
Oh yeah, blame me. It's not my fault that Ireland are playing this weekend. I didn't set the fixture.
We'll speak about proper rugby and Ireland versus Australia again to you next week. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.